All right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we've got a wild one. Let me tell you, we are talking about Project Wolf Hunting. And this movie just kind of came out of nowhere for me, but is absolutely insane. And I had a really fun time talking about it with Harris Dang from the AU Review. And yeah, we got a lot of great puzzle pieces to get into in this one. So that is coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. Also, we do have a Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, as well as Awesome Movie Year, which is another awesome movie podcast that I produce, and from my music career. So lots of great stuff over there. It's patreon.com/bydavidrosen. Check it out. So, with all that said, let's talk about Project Wolf Hunting. All right, this is going to be a wild one, I think. We're going to talk about Project Wolf Hunting, and with me today is Harris Dang. Harris, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. I got to tell you, we'll get into the movie more in a minute, but like I watched this movie last week after being sent a screener. I had seen some like rumblings about it being nuts and everything, online, and I watched it, and then we talked, and we decided we're going to do this episode, and here I am tonight, like a week later, and I'm just thinking like. This movie is such like a fever dream. Like, am I imagining some of the things that happen in this? It's like, man, what a week! Like just letting this thing ruminate. But you know what? Before we get too deep into it, it is your first time on the podcast. Tell my listeners a little about you and what you do.
Oh well, basically, I'm a film critic from Australia. I'm from Sydney. I basically started off being a film critic like back in like 2015. Started off with a little blog, and I wrote for websites like the Cinema and Eastern Kicks, which are based outside of Australia that specialize in Asian cinema. And from
Mhm.
there, started writing in Australia, known as the AU Review, and here I am, basically.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Mm.
Right on. Yeah, as with many people in the world of film criticism, I'm not quite sure exactly at what point, we started following each other, but I always enjoy your reviews. So I'm happy to have you here on the show today. Did you see this at one of the festival screenings or something? Because I know it's been making a lot of noise.
No, I saw it as a screener as well because it was released in Australian cinemas back in like September or October. So
Okay.
I wish I would have seen it in the cinema. I saw it on a screen myself, but even watching it in my own home, it was just a wild ride. Like, it just
Yeah.
blew me away.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched this at like 9 a.m. and it's like, man, that's a wake up call. But yeah, I do hope when we're recording this here in the United States, it hasn't been released yet at this time, and
Mm,
I don't think it's really going to get much of any kind of if anything, a limited release or something like that. But it will
mm.
be on streaming soon, and I'm sure this is going to be like kind of like a cult classic going forward. It just seems like it's got to be, but we'll get into more about what is so nuts about this movie as we're like moving through our puzzle pieces and all that. I gotta say, my puzzle pieces list is like all over the place. But what do you have for your first puzzle piece here? What do you think might have inspired Project Wolf Hunting?
Well, one of them would be a film called Men Behind the Sun, which is essentially a 80s Hong Kong exploitation movie. It's about a supposed document about the atrocities that the Japanese have done on the Chinese in suppose of war experiments. And
Hmm.
in Project Wolf Hunting, basically in the second act, there is a turn that involves experimentation. And
Sure.
when I saw that moment, I couldn't believe it because I wasn't expecting the film to even go into an exploitation type of edge. Like, because
Yeah.
in the early trailers, it basically hinted that, oh, there's cops, there's prisoners on a ship, violence ensues. That's basically it. Like basically the
Yeah.
story turns in the second or third act. I just did not expect that at all. And the film Men Behind the Sun came up in my mind when I watched the movie, and I wasn't expecting that at all.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but it sounds great, and it sounds, yeah, like to kind of use that historical background, and then shit goes crazy from there. Like it's definitely an interesting kind of setup, and something where you're just really gonna have no idea where it's headed until you're just like deep into it all and into all the insanity. Um, I will have a lot of those kinds of things along the way, but I'm going to start for my first puzzle piece here with I think like the bare bones setup until you see a guy covered with maggots,
Mm.
crawling out of his face or whatever it was. Like you don't know that, like you said, anything else is going on this boat. You just know that there's a whole bunch of criminals on the boat being transported. And I went with Con Air for my first puzzle piece, which is like the obvious go-to, I think. Convicts being transported against everybody's better judgment. You know that shit's gonna hit the fan at some point, and you just don't quite know how. And like I feel like it's like such a fun setup for this kind of a movie, and I'm sure there's like so many movies like that. We're recording this the weekend that Plane just came out, the new Gerard Butler movie, and spoiler alert, but I'll probably use this puzzle piece again there. But even though it's just one criminal, but still. But just the idea of transporting violent criminals, that never goes well in these movies.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of Connie. I love Nicolas Cage and the whole concept of flying prisoners and then like just in being in the air at all with prisoners.
Yeah,
Like that's just a recipe of disaster. It's just amazing.
yeah,
And like this Con Air, yeah, everyone has been referencing Con Air in relation to this, and it's like you said, it's a very inspired premise, and I'm glad that they went with that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And boats, planes, they're both you're closed in. You're not going anywhere. Everybody's gonna have to deal with each other one way or another. So it works out either way.
Hmm.
But what do you got for your next puzzle piece?
The next one that would be another Hong Kong movie actually called Riki Oh, The Story of Riki,
Sure.
where basically ultra violence is basically the only means of survival. And in the case of Project Wolf Hunting, it kind of feels the same way. And the
Hmm.
violence in Project Wolf Hunting is so exaggerated and so over the top that it's hard to take seriously, even though the movie doesn't really take a comedic bent. It's
Right.
like people's arms just get ripped off and blood geysers just keep spraying. And I think there's one point one person uses a guy's severed arm and beats another guy to death with it, or grabs the guy's like leg and stabs the other guy in the neck. It's just the violence is just so extreme that my eyes were just beaming the entire time, and it reminded me of
Yeah.
Rikio in a way, and and I never thought I would ever see a film like that, especially in this day of age. And much like Rikio, it uses a lot of practical blood. I I personally didn't see any CGI blood in the movie. Maybe it was the screener quality that I didn't notice it, but there was a lot of
Hmm.
practical blood in the film itself. Like everyone in there was just completely drenched. Every actor, stunt person was just in the the torrent of blood, and I I got to the death.
Yeah, yeah, they absolutely go for it, and you really got to appreciate that in a movie like this, where they don't shy away from any of the insanity of it. And yeah, Riki, I haven't seen it in so many years. I need to revisit it one of these days. It's like so over the top, but yeah, you kind of have to go straight forward, otherwise you turn into an Evil Dead or something like that. If you
Mm.
turn into, and don't get me wrong, I love Evil Dead. I bring it up all the time on this podcast, but for for this kind of situation, you kind of want it to be a little bit more straightforward like that. And yeah, that's a great piece right there. I'll go with my next piece, which kind of goes along, even though I haven't seen that Men Behind the Sun. It kind of goes along with that, except for a much more mainstream, like Hollywood version of that kind of thing. And I'm going with Overlord,
Oh, right.
a really ridiculous over the top movie where during World War II they're infiltrating a Nazi base, and
Yeah.
we think we're gonna get Nazi, war action violence. I mean, of course we knew if we watched the trailers, but we think we're gonna get, just straightforward war violence. We have no idea that we're heading towards zombies and like insane human experimentation and all that kind of stuff. And Overlord goes completely off the deep end in that direction. Whereas here in Project Wolf Hunting, we're introduced to, we might as well get there right now, this basically unstoppable zombie like killing machine that has been created during a previous war, and is still being kept alive all these years later, and is very pissed off and ready to kill a lot of people.
Yeah. What I love about the is that role, appropriately named Alpha, the villain's named
Yeah.
Alpha of all things, is that the actor who plays him, his other role in a film that came out the same year, which is called The Roundup, starring Don Lee, he plays a comedic role as a police captain in that movie. So imagine my surprise seeing him playing this comedic role right here, and in another movie in the same year where he plays this like formidable antagonist that is just unstoppable, doesn't say an entire word in the entire movie, and he's just slaughtering everyone. I'm like, this is the same guy?
That's range right there. That is range. That's what you look for in an actor. Absolutely. I love it.
Hmm.
Well, what do you have for your next piece?
Next piece would be a movie called Deep Rising, directed by the underappreciated Stephen Sommers, who went on to make movies, the Mummy movies. And
Sure.
the movie is basically about a bunch of thieves going on a shipping boat ran by rich people, and they don't realize that the ship has been overtaken by this giant aquatic creature.
Hmm.
And much like Project Wolf Hunting, you expect the movie to go from one way, and then it basically just changes gears into another thing altogether. Like you expect
Yeah.
the Deep Rising to be like a heist movie where they just go in and rob people, and then all of a sudden they go in there. It's like a changing. Yeah, I said it's a changing gear. The funny thing is that I don't want to say it's derivative. Okay, maybe let's say it's derivative. There's no doubt about it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, fair.
it's like a lot of it is like it's very reverential to genre classics like Alien, where basically they're drawn into something and then something different happens. And
Sure.
I enjoyed that feel of Project Wolf Hunting. And even though the movie lacks originality, it makes up for it in surprise. Like this,
Sure.
yeah, it's like there's an assurance in the direction where like there's like a eager to please element in the direction that wants to entertain the audience, and I really appreciated that in the case
I
of
I think
yeah.
that's a really good way to put it, like an assurance in the direction, because like this is a movie that could go like totally into just B movie schlock, and they really ride that line, but end up coming out on the right side of it to where it's just straight up fun, and yeah, that's something that's really difficult to pull off. So I'm gonna go to my next puzzle piece, and I think this kind of like fits in there a little bit with that as well. There was a meme going around recently on like Twitter and Facebook and stuff, and it was a picture of RoboCop, and it said something like, "Dude died and still has to show up for work." And that reminded me of poor Alpha, who has just been dead for all these years, and just being forced to be this permanent soldier that he has no choice about. And it's like no wonder that he's going to become this crazed killer after like having to do this for so long. He's probably just like, lost every last ounce of soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it.
Mm,
And you know, he basically is like an evil RoboCop in a way. And I just rewatched RoboCop last year for like the first time, and it's so good and it's
mm,
so funny. And again, it rides that line between like schlocky B movie, like satire, and actually just being a straight up great action movie.
Hmm.
Where I feel like that's kind of what Project Wolf Hunting is doing. It's riding that line between like just totally screwing with your expectations, but then also being that it's martial arts, it's action, it's horror, it's all those things at the same time as it's like messing with all those preconceived notions of those things.
Oh, Robocop, the best Jesus movie ever made. That's
Yes. Absolutely.
oh man.
Ridiculous. What do you have for your next piece?
It's I think it'll be Brain Dead by Peter Jackson.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
The thing about Brain Dead is that the origins of the movie it's not an expansive movie. It's kind of a
Mm,
small nature movie when you think about it. It's more like how do we let our limitations inspire creativity? Because
sure.
like in Project Wolf Hunting, the entire 90% of the movie is set in a boat, and the 10% being the preparation of getting onto the boat as well as the flashbacks in the movie. And I like how the creativity in allowing like how much can we get away with what we can do within such a small nature and or setting. And
Sure.
what I read about Project Wolf Hunting is that the amount of blood that they use in the movie is 2.5 tons.
Nice.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, of course that makes perfect sense. 2.5 tons, and it's just so much fun in that sense that it's a very visceral experience. And what I like is that it doesn't peak. Like it gets keeps going. The momentum just keeps going throughout the 2 hours because this movie could have
Sure.
easily just been monotonous, like maybe 40 minutes in. But it's
Yeah.
just the element of surprise and the momentum and the pacing that keeps it going. And then also the pure geysers of blood is just amazing, and it reminded me of Brain Dead in the best of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great piece. Like I love that movie so much. One of my favorites. And I think that's part of why I really wanted to cover the movie is because of that, like just leaning in so hard to its premise and just going all the way as far crazy as it could possibly go.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I mean that is definitely a very Peter Jackson spirit of like taking things to the extreme and then just continuing forward from there. And yeah, that's a lot of blood for sure. Absolutely. I love it. That is a great one. I will go with. I've seen a lot of people who have seen this so far making this comparison, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. And this again continues with describing our alpha character, but Jason Takes Manhattan meets Jason X.
Ah.
He is an unstoppable killing machine, and he is let loose on a ship where there's no escaping him. It's not in a city. It's not in a small town. It's not in the woods. It's in this closed-in space where there's just no getting away from this guy.
I need to catch up on the Jason movies. I've only just watched Final Chapter just yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm slowly getting into it because I watched the 3D movie in the cinema, by the way, just a few
Hmm.
months ago as well.
Nice.
So yeah, and Jason Takes Manhattan. That's the one where they basically it's even though the movie is meant to be set in Manhattan, 80% of it is on a boat. Is that it?
That's right. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
will say if you just watch the final chapter, it's all downhill from here. But
Oh.
yeah, but these two movies do have their fun moments though. I mean, they all have their fun moments. Jason's just such a ridiculous character and just filled with so many great kills. I mean, you talked about earlier with Alpha ripping someone's arm off and beating somebody with it. I mean, there's so many great kills in the Jason movies.
That's right.
Such fun stuff. Well, what do you got for your next piece?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a piece, but it's more along the lines of the films of the Indonesian director Timo Janto, the man who directed movies like Headshots and The Night Comes Before Us.
Sure.
And yeah, because his portrayal of ultra violence in his movies are, are so effective in a way that he basically just um goes along the fine line between sheer brutality and voyeurism, in the sense that you're enjoying what you're seeing, but you really shouldn't be looking at it.
Sure.
Yeah, and a lot of the violence is reminiscent of that in Project Wolf Hunting as well. And also, what I like about Project Wolf Hunting is that it's not afraid to get dirty, because
Hmm.
like even not just the blood, but the color scheme of it, as they said in the
Yeah.
boat, it's very it's very grimy and rustic, and just yellows and greens everywhere. It's all over, in a sense. Like there's a scene in the movie, like you said, he's covered in maggots. He's lying there. He hasn't woken up
Yeah.
yet. Yeah, it's very like green. I honestly thought there was like mushrooms going around at one point. It's just yeah,
It could have been.
it could have
Yeah.
been, yeah. But yeah, exactly, like the violence in there, as well as the visuals of it. It's both like beautifully grimy, and you can't look away.
Yeah.
Definitely can't look away from
Sure.
it. Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah, The Night Comes for Us is one that I was considering for my list. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't actually have it on my list, but that's another thing. Like with Project Wolf Hunting, it feels like perfectly made to be like a midnight movie or something like that. Like you could
Mm.
totally picture. We talked about wishing we had seen it with a crowd or something. Like this feels like something if you watched it, you
Mm.
know, late at night. I actually watched The Night Comes for Us very much under the influence, so I
Ah.
don't actually remember all of it. I think this would be a good movie for that as well.
Mm.
So I will go with another piece. This one might feel a little out of left field, but go with me here. I'm gonna go with The Crow for my next
Ooh.
puzzle piece. I was thinking about The Crow because of all the bad guys. Basically, these bad guys are so comically ridiculously bad, like irredeemably bad. And I rewatched The Crow for the first time in like a decade or something, like
Mm.
last year, and that was one of the things that stuck out to me is how bad the bad guys are. Like everyone is just like so just evil, and like you got everything from like the sneering to just beating people to killing with zero remorse whatsoever to the big head honcho, that scene that's sure to be infamous of him getting a blowjob on the phone, like all the like these just bad dudes being bad guys. Like it's just it's hilarious, and it's very like comic booky, like
Mm.
in a way, but it's like it's so over the top that it really just sells just how crazy it all is.
Mm. It's like, even though the roles are all one dimensional, like the actors are just like basically given free reign to do what they wanted in their roles.
Sure.
It's like, oh, the gruff police captains that just look old and really overplay that, and
Yeah.
the over eager rookie just like, just be tenacious at what you do, and the prisoners just be as sadistic as we can possibly be, and all pretend you have
Yeah.
mustaches you can twirl.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of twirly mustaches in theory, for
Mm.
sure. Yeah, the main like worst of the bad guys, I can't I didn't write down his name, but he's got like the neck tattoo and all that stuff.
Yes.
Like that dude is just he's so bad. Like he's
Yeah.
he's such a bad dude, and like he must be having such a blast playing that role. That's all I can imagine. He must be having so much fun.
It's like his resting face is basically like an evil smile. Like,
Absolutely.
mm.
Oh man, what do you got for your next piece?
um, basically, Under Siege with Die Hard. Basically, those action movies that are set in one place. And in the case of Under
Sure.
Siege, like you said before, like the villains are so over the top in their villainy. And there's one moment in Project Wolf Hunting with the characters that kind of remind me of Under Siege. There's a doctor character and a nurse assistant of that character that is like a promiscuous woman, and it kind of reminded me of the scene in Under Siege where basically a model just comes out of the birthday cake, and
Sure.
it's like you see this weird gallery of characters before even the weirdness kind of even starts, and on that's basically the only comedic element in the movie that you can
Mhm.
you can find some amusement in it, and it kind of reminded me of Under Siege in a way. And also, like Die Hard, basically, Alpha, you can kind of see Alpha as the protagonist in a way, because technically Alpha
Nice.
didn't do anything wrong, and
Right.
you just woke the darn thing up, and it's like, what would you do that for? Now I have to kill everyone. And in Die Hard, you can easily see Hans Gruber as the protagonist in a way, because he has his own, quest to do, and then Bruce Willis just happens to come in and then fuck everything up. So, in a way,
That's amazing.
yeah, you can kind of see Alpha as a protagonist in a way. It's like, why would you wake me up? I'm on my way somewhere, and you just have to ruin everything.
I'm thinking of all those hashtag Thanos was right people on Twitter, like to hashtag Alpha did nothing wrong, that yeah, that would definitely work. And yeah, but both great puzzle pieces. I'll throw the Raid in there for another action movie, nonstop action in a closed space, where nobody can get out. That just kind of fits right in with both of those. I haven't seen Under Siege in forever. Man, I wonder how that holds up. I maybe haven't seen it since the theater.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't seen any Seagal films in a long time, so
I
maybe one of these days I'll revisit some.
I don't think it will hold up that well. If anything, it will probably end up being funnier than you remembered.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That is absolutely fair. You know what? Speaking of not necessarily good movies, I'm gonna throw in here two movies combined that I thought of. Recent movies where a superpowered character is let loose on a boat full of criminals. That is Morbius from last year and Bloodshot from the year before. But both movies allow our superpowered guy to just kill a whole bunch of criminals with no remorse, no need for, like, they're one dimensional, like we said, like they could just all get just taken out one by one. And then of course here in Project Alpha, because like the mercenaries or whatever come in, like we get like a whole fresh batch of people to get killed too. So it's like, just letting our guy just kill everybody on the boat. So I figured I'd throw those in here as well, and they kind of they fit in with those last puzzle pieces too of you know uh, action violence in a closed space. So why not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Morbius,
why
I
not?
couldn't believe it. I love the fact about Morbius that some people actually thought that its Morbius timeline is actually in the film. And I thought, no, it's not. It's completely made up. Don't see it just so you want to hear that line. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, Twitter doesn't exist outside of Twitter. People need to learn that.
That is
It's
true. That
important
is
to
true.
it's an important lesson.
Mm.
Well, I only have one more puzzle piece. Do you have any more pieces you want to bring up here?
There's one left. Resident Evil is one
Oh, sure.
example. Maybe because the film in a way kind of feels like a video game in its plotting. Like you go from one stage to another stage to another stage, and the last Resident Evil game I played is Resident Evil 5, so don't take on me for this for full credit. But
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
the villain Alpha kind of reminds me of Nemesis in a sense, like this
Sure.
overpowering giant, this fearsome figure that just like was almost unstoppable. And yeah, it reminded me of Resident Evil as well, and just this grisliness and
Yeah.
violence. Yeah.
You need some real power-ups to take care of that guy in in order to get it. The movie does feel very like video game like in that way, and it feels like a perfect setup. Like this could be like a perfect setup for like a movie to game adaptation or something like that. It would be freaking awesome actually. But to that point though of Resident Evil, it's funny you bring that up as your last piece, because my last piece, also directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, I'm going with Event Horizon to wrap my
Hey.
puzzle pieces up. When we see like demon face Sam Neill with like the stapled eyes and all that stuff, like
Mm.
it totally like reminds me of Alpha's creature design, or however you would call it. And also, again, we're trapped on a ship, in that case, a spaceship instead of a boat. But it kind of has that same vibe of like these people are just trapped in hell basically, and there's no getting out alive. Everyone's going to die in horrible ways, and just in this case, it's a boat instead of a spaceship. But mainly though, it's those eyes being stapled up. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Something about eyes being stapled. That's gross.
It's great that you bring that up actually, because Event Horizon, much like Project Wolf Hunting, it takes its reference on a lot of sources. Like this is from The Shining, or this is Hellraiser, and
Hmm.
then puts him in a different setting, like in space, and it's just the way it combines it together. It's a really entertaining and spooky piece, and I'm glad that you brought Event Horizon up. It's actually one of my favorite Paul W.S. Anderson movies. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I maintain that it's one of the scariest movies ever. Like
Mm.
I know like it gets like a lot of laughs and stuff, but
Mm.
like I just think that movie is so scary. I think it really is just filled with so much dread and like atmosphere and like yeah, it's freaking
Mm.
crazy. But yeah. I will read down our list of puzzle pieces here, and then we'll get into some closing thoughts. But we talked about Men Behind the Sun, Con Air, Riki Oh, The Story of Riki, Overlord, Deep Rising, Robocop, Brain Dead, Jason X, and Jason Takes Manhattan, Headshot and The Night Comes for Us, The Crow, Under Siege, Die Hard, The Raid, Morbius and Bloodshot, Resident Evil, and Event Horizon. Yeah, a lot of crazy movies on our list, I feel like. I feel like that's
Mm.
like the number one thing here.
Yeah.
For people who haven't seen Project Wolf Hunting, like just it's nuts.
The thing about Project Wolf Hunting is that when it came out, it was out at the same time as Terrifier 2 in cinemas. So
Mm.
so basically I just encourage people at that time like to watch both of them. If you can do a double bill of Project Wolf Hunting and Terrifier 2, then please do. Because it's
Oh, that must be
it's
nuts.
it's
Yeah,
just a
that's a crazy
bloodbath.
double feature.
Yeah.
Oh man. Wow. That's wild.
Mm.
Wow. Do you have any other closing thoughts on Project Wolf Hunting before we wrap it up?
It might be guaranteed to be the bloodiest movie of 2023. I said that for 2022, but in this case, it might be an early time to call it, but it could be the bloodiest movie you'll see in 2023.
It's gonna be this or Evil Dead, like one of the two. And
Right.
yeah, Evil Dead Rise has its work cut out for it
Yes.
to top this. So I agree with that statement
Hmm.
absolutely. Oh man, well Harris, this was great. Do you have another movie you watched recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
I haven't been to cinemas in a couple of weeks. The last movie I saw was Avatar.
Okay. Well,
So
did you like Avatar? Are you recommending it?
I do like Avatar. It's great to watch it in
Okay.
3D. It's the high frame rate is fantastic. The visual splendor is magnificent. It's basically an improvement on the first one in basically almost every way. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would recommend Avatar too. I'm sorry for the lack of choices here. I haven't been in cinema in a while.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, it's got to make that 2 billion, so let's keep recommending it until James gets his money.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Harris, thank you so much for being here. Tell people again where they can find you and your writing.
Yep. So you can find me on my Twitter account at Filmomatic, so FILMMOMATIC, and you can find my writings from our website, the AU Review, as well as another website called Impulse Gamer, both Australian websites that I frequently write to.
Awesome. Well, yeah, again, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we can get you back again for another episode sometime.
Oh, I'll await your request. Fantastic.
I'm Josh Bell.
And I'm Jason Harris, and we co-host a podcast called Awesome Movie Year.
Each season, we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year.
We deep dive into these specific years, and we pick out why they were such great years for films. We go over the biggest hits, the biggest flops, the best pictures, some personal picks, some cult classics.
Years we've covered in past seasons include 1994, 2003, 1977, and 1984, and we've got all of film history to look forward to. So check us out at awesomemovieyear.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Project Wolf Hunting. I feel like whenever I say that title, I'm saying like Goodwill Hunting. Project Wolf Hunting. Good Will Hunting. I don't know. I need to change my cadence a little bit or something. But anyway, thanks to Harris Dang for joining me on that conversation. It was a really fun one to talk about. Hope you guys all check out the movie. And, of course, hope you're all subscribed to Piecing It Together. You could subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening right now. Hit the subscribe or follow or whatever the button's called. And if there's a 5-star button, I'd appreciate your rating and review. It helps get the show in front of more people, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make a fun movie podcast. It's a little different from all the other movie podcasts out there. There's lots of great ones out there, but it's kind of its own thing with the whole puzzle pieces angles, so trying to get it in front of as many people as we can. So thanks for being out there and listening. Drop those 5-star ratings. You can follow us on social media at PiecingPod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. I already told you about the Patreon, so check that out as well. And, thanks for listening. We got a lot of piecing it together on the way, but right now I'm going to close this out with a piece of my music. And, I feel like playing something new. This is a track that I've been working on for whatever my next album ends up being. I know what my next album is going to be, but I might change my plans around a little bit. As you know, I just recently released more content, my latest album, but I've been concurrently working on music for 2 more albums, and while there was a plan in place for what the first of those next 2 albums would be, I might change things around a little bit once I start getting back to work on all this. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, this is a song called Nightbeat. That's not done, but it's close, and I hope you like it. We'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.